Hello everyone, my name is Erin and I'm chair of the Southern Branch of the Irish Patchwork Society. In 2016, we've decided to relaunch our Block of the Month project. We started in June of 2016 and decided to continue the project during the summer to give members a block to construct. So this is going to be the July Block of the Month, and it is going to be the T block. You'll see here, it looks like there are 4 capital T's kind of on their sides, tilted a little bit. It's made out of 4 contrast fabrics and a background fabric. And it's a rather fun block to make, but the only tricky part about it is organizing the fabrics that you're going to use for the flying geese. And we'll get to that. So again, the special characteristics of this, it builds upon the previous skills that we learned last year. You're going to construct a diamond and a square unit, a half square triangle unit, and flying geese. These flying geese units are what makes the block slightly tricky, although not really, because they're made from 3 fabrics rather than the traditional 2. And I've included a coloring page in the download materials to help you organize what fabrics you need to have together for the flying geese units. So again, this is just sort of a zoomed up portion of those flying geese units. So you can see that, for example, in the top one, there's that like bejeweled cat on the left-hand side, and then the salmon fox on the right-hand side. And then down below, there's just another example of the flying geese units, and you're going to be making 4 different types of flying geese. So this is just an example of a zoomed in area of what makes the block a little tricky. So just like I did last session for the June Block of the Month, I decided to make some quilt variations in my quilting software so you could get an idea of what you could do with this block. So this is what you would make if you just had this block, 3 blocks across and 4 blocks down, what that quilt would look like. And I think that's rather interesting. Or you could put in some sashing and just a traditional border just to kind of space those blocks a little bit farther apart. Again, it's a great looking quilt. It would be perfect for a way to show off maybe some kids' fabrics or something. And then I thought, well, what happens when you put the block on point? And I rather like this block. It sort of reminds me of a churn dash block. I think the T, you can see the T's a little bit better because they're perpendicular to each other rather than on point in the block. And then I like that secondary pattern that those diamonds kind of make as well. And then I thought, well, what happens when you switch out the background fabric with the contrast fabrics? So here, the contrast fabrics are serving as the background fabric, and the background fabric, the white fabric, is serving as the focal point fabric, and I thought that was interesting as well. The thing about this one is that with the way that you turn the blocks, you can also create secondary patterns with like the gray and the yellow blocks being on the diagonal, and just the way that you arrange the blocks in the units or in the layout. So those are some interesting quilts that you could make just using this one block. You can find the block instructions at our website at ipscork.com. There's going to be a tab at the top that says Block of the Month Project, and you just select 2016. If you're curious about our last Block of the Month project, that's under 2015, and the full instructions for making all of the blocks as well as the quilts are there that you can download. So let's get to our cutting instructions. You're going to make, out of your background fabric, you're going to make 1 4.5 inch square, 8 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles, 2 5.5 inch squares, and then from 4 different contrast fabrics, you're going to cut 4 2.5 inch squares and 1 5.5 inch square. And I found that this was the best way to utilize those contrast fabrics. So to make your half square triangle units, you can create your half square triangles any way that you like. Again, I found that the way that I'm going to show you was the best way to utilize your fabric. So taking that 5.5-inch square, you're going to cut from corner to corner. And you only need one of these triangles to make your half square triangle unit. And then from that second triangle, you're going to cut a 2.5-inch square from that triangle. So you're going to have one big triangle and then a square from the other one. And then from your background fabric, 5.5-inch squares, you're going to cut from corner to corner. And then with all of the contrast triangles, you're going to layer one background fabric and one contrast triangle together. And then you're going to sew a 1/4-inch seam along that long diagonal side. You're going to make a total of 4 of these with those 4 different contrast fabrics. And then you're going to press those half square triangle open and trim to 4.5 inches square. Again, you'll end up with a total of 4 different half square triangles. And then you'll set those aside. And then you'll make your flying geese units. Now this is the quote-unquote tricky part, but again, it's not really all that tricky. I found once you draw a line from corner to corner with all of those contrast squares, you're going to pair them up into the pairs that you need to make the flying geese. So you're all I'm thinking ahead a little bit. So you'll have a total of 4 piles of the paired half square flying geese fabrics that you'll need for those, and then that in this picture here, the pile on the right hand side is just of the 4 different contrast fabrics. You will have one piece of fabric left over from all of those contrast fabrics, and you're going to use those squares for the diamond in a square in the last step. So you'll have 4 piles of 4 pieces of fabric apiece. Again, use that coloring page that I've included in your handout to just help organize which fabrics you need to have paired together. So I needed the gray and the yellow paired together. I needed the yellow and the blue cat paired together. I needed the gray and the salmon fox paired together. And then I needed the salmon fox and the blue cat together. So those are my 4 piles. And working a pile at a time, you're going to take one of those contrast fabrics and the 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles. You're going to lay your square on top and sew on the line. And referring to your coloring page, you're going to want to ensure that that angle is correct. So when you look at that coloring page and it's got that blank block that you've kind of colored in with the fabrics that you're using, it depends which side that gray fabric needs to be on, or whatever your fabric would be on the right hand side. So you need to just make sure that the angles are going to end up correct, and then sew on that line. You're going to trim your seam, press it open, and add a second contrast fabric. And again, just double check with that coloring page. It's your own little reference guide to help kind of lay out the blocks. And you'll do this with all of those rectangles of the background fabric and all of those contrast pieces. And you'll make 2 matching flying geese units, and then 4 different flying geese pairs of matching flying geese units. And then you're going to take those matching flying geese units and sew them together, and you'll end up with a total of 4 of these types of units. Again, you'll just have one that looks like this, and then 3 others that are all different from each other. So once you have those all together, you're going to set them aside, and you're going to construct your diamond in a square unit. And kind of following the same way of assembly of a flying geese unit, you're going to put the squares on opposite corners, sew on that line, and trim your seam, press it open, and then repeat with the opposite fabrics. Again, refer to that coloring page that I've included in your handout for where you're putting what fabric. So basically, you just kind of need to keep those fabrics organized and refer to the coloring page that I've included, just to keep the layouts and what fabrics need to be together. And to assemble your block, You're going to take all of those sewn units you have, so the half square triangles, the flying geese, and the diamond in a square, and you're going to lay them out, again using your coloring page as a guide. So the half square triangle units go into the four corners, and the flying geese units go in between the half square triangles, and then the diamond in a square goes in the center. And then, working as if it's a 9 patch, you're going to sew those units in a row together, and I made sure to press my seams in alternating directions. So it looks like I pressed the top and the bottom row out to the side, and then I pressed the center row inside, although I can't quite tell 100%. I don't have the block in front of me right now. So just make sure to press those seams in alternate directions so you can nest them, and it just helps make sewing your rows together a lot easier. And you will end up with this block, the T block. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me at corkips@gmail.com, and I will give you lots of suggestions and help if you need it. And then we also have a Pinterest page that you could check out with all sorts of blocks and tutorials that I found surfing the internet. So I thank you for paying attention to this, and stay tuned for next month's block. It should debut on the 1st, if all goes to plan, and I shall see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye.